No, you're not supposed to do that. Yes.
Okay, we're going to begin this meeting. And today I am your substitute teacher. Because Jim and Judy are out of town, and so I'm going to be a substitute teacher. And wow, this is a blast from the past, because remember, I'm your past COVID president, where we never had a meeting in person. I convened the meetings from my kitchen table. All of you basically were in isolation, zooming in from God knows where. But here I'm at the podium. I mean, this is very cool. So I'm going to start, I think, because if you remember, we would start with the gong. Okay, so welcome to the Gong Show, a throwback. And as far as that goes, I couldn't help it. We have to have our at least few positive F words for old time's sake. So before we officially start, here are the positive F words for the day. As friendly and fun-loving Rotarians, our club functions to fight hunger by feeding the homeless. We fit shoes, we fill backpacks, we fund special projects like the PAC, and together we focus on a fantastic future for all, and that is far out. Okay, and a big thanks both to Jenny Jackson, who is our tech support today, our tech guru, and Lisa Higgins, who was a wonderful welcomer, and she isn't even a Walmart professional. And let's see, do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Pledge. The pledge.
Yes. Cool. I can do it this way. I got it. Don't worry. I have it on my schedule here. Okay, no visiting Rotarians. How about guests? Well, we will have a guest in our presenter. So welcome, Martusha. All right, Brenda, could you please come up and do the pledge and say the 4 ways?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, the 4-way test. First, is it the truth? And I'd like to explain that I have a little thing that I add to that, because in my meditation, I acknowledge that truth has many aspects, and love is large enough to become small. Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, is it beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Hold on a minute, though. This is Brenda's birthday eve. So, on the count of 3, let's sing her happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brenda. Happy birthday to you. And Susan Bondelson, is Susan here? Okay, Susan was going to be the one to do the inspiration. Does someone else have something inspiring they'd like to share? Good, thank you, Beth. I'm about to read you the inspection report from Roger when he sold their house. Sorry about that.
Okay. You know what? This is. I have in my, notes, I say inspirations. And of course, because I'm in a hurry, I'm typing in all the wrong things. Okay, so, May 2nd. Here's today's reminder. Today I will stop from time to time to see how I feel. Perhaps today will bring joy, or perhaps sadness. But either will remind me that I am very much alive. I would not exchange the laughter of my heart for the fortunes or the multitudes, nor would I be content with converting my tears into calm. It's my fervent hope that my whole life on this earth will ever be tears and laughter. Can I hijack this just a moment? Do you know where Dawn went last week? Are you gonna talk about it? You know, we talked about these amazing young women that are athletes and leaders for our time. 40 years ago? 40 years ago, this little chick was running in Olympia, Washington. What were you doing running in Olympia, Washington, might I ask, Dawn? Okay, it was the big breakthrough for women. It was the first women's Olympic marathon trial. 250 women attended, and so if you can imagine, in 40 years, the average age of those who came to the reunion, there were about 60 of us, was somewhere between 60 and 75. But I will tell you one really awesome thing. I mean, Olympia had been amazing during that time, but the oldest woman who qualified to run in those trials was Sister Marion Irvine. And she was 54. So I had said before we were going, I said, well, you know, how are you going to see Sister Marion? You know, she would be 94 years old. She was there. And not only that, she's still just incredible. She was amazing. So, yay, women. And we're really lucky to have one of their stars. How about any announcements?
I did just finally get confirmation that the shoes are on the way. They're gonna start getting some of them this week and some next week, so I just sent out an email today. We will have the shoe fitting at the Boys and Girls Club on Tuesday, June 4th. And we will arrive at 3 o'clock to be able to get the shoe kind of all lined up. And then at 3:30 at the latest is when we will go ahead and start fitting shoes on the kids. So mark your calendars, Tuesday, June 4th, 3 o'clock at the Boys and Girls Club, and we'd love to have you all there, because it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Hi, this weekend in Goatnick, the parade is on Saturday. The the Grants Pass Club is having their 100th anniversary, and they're doing a parade, and they're hoping for 100 Rotarians to be there. They're meeting on 4th and D Street. They're number 95 out of 100 in the parade, walking the parade. And they're gonna all get there at 9. The parade starts at 10. And they'd love for anybody who wants to join them to come out and wear your Rotarian shirts and join them.
You got it. I think you could come at 9:30.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to mention that the sign-up sheet for casseroles, muffins, biscuits, and such is going to be going around, but now I need to talk to you about kind of a bittersweet thing, but I think a successful thing. Our commitment, it was decided last night at our board meeting that our commitment to Men's Breakfast in the Park will end on June the 30th. So this is the last one that I'm going to be passing around. As some very wise people have said, to everything there is a season. And we have given a great commitment to this project and really gotten it going. So I feel nothing but pride in all of you that have done so well with this. Now, what's gonna happen between June 30th and when the shelter opens full time could be another month, possibly two. And during that time, some of you may still want to provide casseroles, biscuits, and muffins. And if you are those people, and dog food, can't forget the dog food. So if you are those people, I will be available to help keep that going, that piece going. But the money, the commitment to serve, fill coffers will come to an end June 30th. Okay? And I really thank you all for what you've done.
I always think when you're doing the announcement, it's inspirational because it really does really show you how many different ways we're involved in our community. Thank you. All right, our presentation today, it's about a special service at Asante Rotary Behavioral Health Unit. It's going to be Martusha Thomson, who's a recreational therapist. But Steve, I'd love you to come and give Martusha a great introduction.
Sure. One of Rotary's initiatives this year is a focus on mental health. And mental health is sometimes not easily discussed by others because of stigma. One of my personal objectives is to make mental health, both prevention and treatment, more openly discussed. Our speaker today is a recreational therapist at Asante Regional Medical Center Behavioral Health. Martusha Thomson has a bachelor's degree in recreational therapy and has worked in mental health for several years. In 2019, Martusha went back to school and earned a master's degree in health administration. Her goal is to provide more effective mental health programming. She is also passionate about providing more mental health awareness and understanding of definite diagnosis. Martusha is also a kindred spirit of mine because she has bred and also journey registered therapy dogs. Please help me welcome Martusha Thomson, our Rotary speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me out here. I'm excited to be here. See if I can figure this out.
Snap it in.
Snap it in. Okay, let's try it. There we go. Okay, does that work? All right, so yes, Steve, I've had the pleasure of getting to know him through pet therapy at Asante, which has been amazing, and I'm really grateful that he gave me this opportunity to come out here and talk to you guys. And so we kind of talked about maybe going over kind of the current state of mental health, some specifics here locally, and kind of how mental health intersects with other aspects of life and what we can do about it. So the first half of the presentation, I'm going to give you a heads up. The first little bit is a lot of numbers, so I'll go through those slides quickly because I kind of want to give you a snapshot of stuff. And the second half is where I'm hoping to kind of spend a little bit more time in depth. So yeah, so we can go ahead. Steve already introduced me, so we can move past that one. But I am a recreational therapist at Asante. I work on BHU. I'm also transitioning to working on the pediatrics unit with Journey, the therapy dog. So I'll be working on both units. So first of all, kind of very, very big picture. These are kind of the main concerns that if you talk about mental health across America, these are the topics that are going to come up, right? That prevalence is going up. It's becoming so much more common for people to be diagnosed with a mental illness. As is the case in many other areas of healthcare, access to care is a problem pretty much everywhere across the United States. Specific to mental health is the stigma. Like was mentioned, kind of there's still that stigma around talking about mental health. People still feel maybe hesitant to bring up their own experiences with it or to ask somebody who might be going through a diagnosis. And then of course, using mental health, that is as you'll see in the numbers, big concern that's been coming up across America where it is rising really quickly, and kind of trying to figure out solutions for those problems. So those are kind of the main areas. Here in Oregon, so this is where we'll get to the numbers. hopefully not too long to just kind of give you a snapshot. I wanted to give you guys an idea of how mental health is here specifically in, all the numbers I have are for like Jackson County, Josephine County, and Oregon compared to the United States. Because it's helpful to kind of see, comparing the numbers where we're at. So in Jackson and Josephine County, 1 in 4 adults are diagnosed with depression, compared to 1 in 12 across the United States. And that's just depression, right? So 1 in 5 adults across the US live with some sort of mental illness diagnosis. In these numbers, I did find it interesting that in Jackson and Josephine County, female community members have a higher rate of being diagnosed with depression, and younger adults have a higher rate of being diagnosed. And that is true for 18 to 34-year-olds in the case. So we are definitely at a higher rate than the United States. And then on the next slide, at least 1 for mental health day. So this was a survey that they did where they asked participants, have you had 1 year definition of poor mental health day in the last 30 days? And so as you can see the different numbers up here, again, this isn't as far off, but we are still pretty consistently above the rest of the United States. Again, female community members were a little bit higher than males. Those with disabilities tended to have a higher rate of reporting at least 1 for mental health. And those specifically in Josephine County who lived under the poverty line had a higher rate of reporting 1 for mental health. So it's kind of interesting to see the big picture numbers, but also maybe where it differs between the population. And then in specifics to suicide, across the United States, it's the 11th leading cause of death, but again, here in Oregon and Josephine and Jackson County, we're a little bit higher. You can see the suicide rates up here as well. These are per 100,000 people for the population. We have had a pretty consistently higher suicide rate here in Jackson and Josephine County than the United States for several years now. We also have a higher suicide mortality rate, meaning the completion of suicide. Our mortality rates have been increasing while the states have been staying the same. So kind of interesting things to note about what we need to do. And something that I know most of you have probably heard, but men are more likely to die by suicide, and firearms are the most likely use for that. And then as Steve knows, I'm especially passionate about pediatric mental health. I've been trying to advocate a lot for this. And so I also want to specifically focus on current state of youth, since it's a little bit different. This next slide, I hope it makes sense. I will explain it, but it was the best way I could get a lot of information on one. So this is, again, all Jackson County, Josephine County, and Oregon. And they did a survey with 6th graders, 8th graders, and 11th graders. So the colors are the grade, and each line is Jackson County, Josephine County, and then Oregon. And the reason I wanted to put it all up here is I wanted to kind of show how, you can see with these reddish pink colors, how the numbers increase drastically as the children get older, right? Starts off kind of in the middle, and then by 11th grade is when our teens are really struggling. It's pretty consistently 50% or more for most of these symptoms that they are describing. And again, on here, so you can see the first time each one is Jackson County. So for the teens, Jackson County was struggling the most. They tend to have the highest numbers. But often we are higher than the state still. So kind of I think a good snapshot to see what our middle schoolers, high schoolers are feeling, that they're experiencing symptoms of depression, that they consider suicide, and that they struggle with their mental health. Like I said, sorry, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you because I want to hopefully have a more in-depth discussion in the second half. The one that I found the most impactful was this bottom one here, is that for the state of Oregon, for this rate specifically looked at ages 5 to 24, they go into young adulthood, since that transition period is really important for mental health. And it is the second leading cause of death for Oregon youth, ages 5 to 24. So we have a higher rate still for the state than for the United States. So we're struggling in the middle. Okay, so like I mentioned at the beginning, access to care is one of the biggest concerns. And a lot of the information that I'll go through with you, comes from, there was a community health assessment for Jackson and Josephine counties. And it was done by a partnership with 4 different local, organizations like, Jackson County Mental Health, All Care, some of those big ones out here. And so the big kind of concerns that came up with it were, they kind of came up with key findings. And when I read through it, I found it interesting because I was like, well, these are all tied to mental health, right? So it's cost of living, lack of affordable housing, access to care, lack of behavioral health services, and provider shortages. And when you look at the studies and the research, all of those things directly impact mental health, right? And so there definitely is an awareness that there's a need, and we're working on it. So these are the mental health provider rates. What I found really interesting is that Josephine has very, very high provider rate. And yet Josephine County still has a very, very high suicide rate. There's obviously lots of variables that can impact that. There are a few different things such as like, being more rural can impact the suicide rate, the demographics of who's out there. But the movement has been there to get the providers. So maybe now we look at what's happening in Josephine County where people aren't able to access the providers, or, where that disconnect is coming from. And then again, just a quick snapshot for pediatric providers. So this is for 10,000, so not 100,000. So really advocating for providers would be good. Okay, so this one and the next one are probably what I'm most passionate about, since I work on an inpatient unit. I just wanted to give you an idea of what is available in Oregon, since we're talking about providers. These are for adults, right? So in Medford, we have the BHU. So we get people from all over. We're pretty much the only one down this way. The next closest are usually several hours away. And this is for when you're in mental health crisis. So you're either feeling suicidal, maybe you're having a schizophrenic break, manic episode from bipolar. When you're in crisis, you're going to go to an inpatient unit. There are other levels of treatment, but this is that most kind of severe. You're in crisis, you need to be safe, you're going to go to an inpatient unit. The other main adult server, as the next slide, is the Oregon State Hospital, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. But I don't know if people are familiar with the fact that these are the only people that they now serve. So it used to be that Oregon State Hospital would take those who were really chronically ill, mentally ill, who maybe weren't in danger per se, but they couldn't take care of themselves because that was their baseline. They would never really be able to fully function independently. However, because beds and providers are so limited, they've had to kind of narrow it down now to only taking those who are pretty much under a criminal kind of process with their mental illness. So they have not accepted kind of the more traditional chronically mentally ill patients in several years. And that has probably been the biggest issue that we've seen locally, is that we have nowhere to send those people. On the BHU, for instance, right, we're acute care, our goal is to have a length of stay of like 5 to 7 days. And I think in the time I've been here, the longest I've had somebody stay was for just over a year on a fully locked down unit, right? I don't know if you've ever had the chance to go onto a BHU, but it's not like other hospital units. We're locked down, you're not allowed to have a phone, you're not allowed to have access to the internet. It's a very, very secure setting because it's meant for 5 to 7 days. And so that has been a struggle for sure here, is finding placement for those people who are always going to have this mental illness and need that kind of assistance and thing. So, and so then again, for inpatient and pediatric, this is my big passion that I've spoken a lot at Asante about. So again, if you're in mental health crisis as a child, you go to an inpatient unit. There are only 2 inpatient units for the entire state of Oregon. And as you can see, it's a total of 44 beds for all youth in the entire state. What this means is that down here in Medford at Asante, we get a lot of kids, since we have the issue, a lot of them come to our ER for behavioral health. And within the ER, we have something called a PCU. It's a psychiatric crisis unit. So it's still part of the emergency room, but it is 4 rooms that are specifically psych safe, meaning that there's no ways that people could harm themselves while in this room, because regular ER rooms have many, many dangers if you are wanting to hurt yourself. This PCU is mainly for our adult patients who come in, and then once they have been processed through the emergency room and are ready to be admitted to PhD, they come up. However, since we're the only kind of local providers, we often get the kids who come in for behavioral health concerns, and they are waiting on one of those 44 beds across the state. And so sometimes they're lucky and they're in that PCU for a day or two before bed opens up. Sometimes they are in the PCU, again, which is an emergency room setting. So imagine you're in an emergency room for 3 weeks waiting for a bed to open up. Inpatient pediatric beds are, I think, the biggest need we have right now. All of these, as you can see, would be great, but at least for me personally, coming from the Asante side of seeing inpatient children who come in and there's no beds. They just don't exist. And that has been new to me. I'm not from Oregon originally, but I've been here for several years now, and I think this is probably the lowest amount of pediatric inpatient beds I've seen. And I understand that it's because of that, you know, the setup of the state, how there's large rural communities between. But I think advocating for stuff here in Southern Oregon is definitely become a big passion of mine because it's so needed. Obviously, coming across the state, it's more specifically here. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I'll try to go faster. So, risk factors, these are just things that kind of can help understand maybe what makes someone more likely to experience mental illness or what can affect their mental illness. Thanks. So some of the main ones that come up the most are socioeconomic stressors, right? Like kind of social determinants of health, chronic illness, substance use, but also adverse childhood experiences. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but it is a very big risk factor. And I found that one interesting because Jackson and Josephine County consistently rank higher than the state for residents with ACE scores. So it's a test that you take, you get a score, and the higher your score is, that is the more adverse childhood experiences you had, and that also corresponded to the likelihood of either getting a mental health diagnosis or attempting suicide. And so, not even like, again, looked at those diagnoses at the beginning, but looking at the ACE scores, we consistently have higher ACE scores. We know that that's going to reflect that in our diagnoses and and then these are population groups that are just at an increased risk of suicidal ideation or attempts. Varying reasons for all of these, so I thought it was interesting to kind of see who, you know, you can identify maybe people that you know in these communities and recognize that they are at a higher risk, and that's something that you kind of want to pay attention to as you interact with folks in your life. I specifically wanted to pull out a few for children as well. For children, it definitely focused much more on the social determinants of health, right? So any kind of lack of stability, that lack of stable housing, lack of stable food resources, transportation, all of those can greatly impact the risk factors for children. But then also bullying. That's something that, you know, I'm sure does happen in adulthood, but typically is mostly associated with childhood. But the one that I pulled out that I thought was really interesting, that it's not just those who are bullied. The ones who bully, the ones who are bullied, and the ones who watch it all have increased risks associated. So basically, it's a very perfusive issue. So now, hopefully, the more hopeful part. I know that probably paints a very sad picture, but it's one of those things that, for me personally, I'm biased since I'm passionate about it, but if you become passionate about it, you realize there is a huge, huge need, but that means that there's a lot that can be done, right? There's so much that can be done to fill in these gaps in there. And so the first one that I wanted to pull out is trainings. These are both two main trainings that Oregon is really promoting for community members, and they're really great. Assist is a 2-day workshop meant for community members to know how to deal with someone who's actively in crisis. So it's going to teach you ways to respond, things to do, things to say, right? So that you feel like you know how to appropriately help somebody. We all can, you know, try our best, but it's helpful to maybe also know the evidence-based methods that are effective for helping in crisis. And then mental health first aid, I like because that is another one that Oregon has been working on, where it's a little bit more focused on any sort of mental health crisis, right? So if you have family or friends who maybe deal with other types of mental diagnoses, this can be helpful to know how to help them if they're going through a panic attack or how, if they're going through psychosis. So just like people are encouraged to take, CPR or BLS courses, I think this is kind of the next wave of, we need to be taking mental health first aid as well, right? You want to help those in your life, but also you could always come across somebody who's in crisis that you don't know. And knowing those evidence-based first aid methods, just like CPR or BLS, is something that you can do as a community member that helps everyone. So these, all of these things, of course, I have the sources and links for, and if you want information on the training, I've got the websites for them where you can find specifically the ones that are happening locally right now. So after that, I'm just gonna ask them for those. Yes.
I know CPR, what's BLS? stand
Oh, sorry, basic life support, maybe no, it's not as common. Okay. Sorry, I don't want to take too much time, I'm almost done. So the other thing that I think is helpful is understanding those who are dealing with mental health diagnoses, right? So I thought the myths were really helpful to kind of understand, right? That one of the biggest and most common ones I hear is that if you're worried about somebody, you're worried that talking to them about it is going to maybe increase their thoughts of suicide or make them more likely to act on it. And it's the exact opposite. When we don't talk about it, mental health lives in that shame, stigma, and shadow. And when we talk about it and bring it to the light, that is how it gets better. And so asking and talking with them directly is so much more helpful. If you're ever concerned, will it bring up these thoughts? Will it make them maybe more likely? It won't. At least that's how this studies for years and years have shown that bringing it up and direct is the best way to keep somebody safe. Once a young person is suicidal, they will be suicidal forever. We've found lots of methods that do work, and there is hope that they will not be suicidal forever. Plenty of youth are able to overcome that. And then, let's see. Let me just pull out this last one here on the slide. People who threaten suicide are just seeking attention. That can often be, even though you would maybe never say that so directly, say somebody comes up to you, might still have some of those biases kind of subconsciously, like, are they really serious about this, right? Or they just kind of being able to go at it. It can display in those kind of more subconscious ways. But obviously it is not true. It's an act of despair. Anything that is signaling to you that they are talking or thinking about it needs to be taken seriously and not as, oh, it's just attention seeking. And then I think I just have 2 more slides. This one is about warning signs, which I thought was really helpful. This is kind of like a very brief summary of what they talk about in some of the mental health first aid, where it's kind of knowing those top 3 warning signs. So talking about making plans for suicide, expressing hopelessness, displaying that severe distress or pain. So kind of memorizing these and really kind of making them very accessible in your mind can be really helpful to notice when those things are happening. Because as clear as it seems here, again, after having worked in this for so long, it's easy to realize how many signs are missed in day to day. Because most of the time it's somebody you know, and you have these conversations, right? And you know that they've been maybe struggling through something personal. And so it can be easy to miss negative changes when it goes from just a personal relationship where you're struggling and sharing to, hey, I'm mentioning some things that are really red flags that are concerning. And so really being clear on these warning signs can help kind of differentiate when you're in those interpersonal relationships where it's a little harder to step back and see the signs. And then the last slide was probably my favorite because I thought this was really, really helpful. This was surveys from local youth, and these are direct quotes from them. And I was like, this is exactly what we want, right? This is what we want to hear. If you could tell us adults, community members who can do stuff, what do you want us to know about it, right? And so I highlighted some of the ones that I thought were the most important. But it's things that they want you to know about suicide among youth, things that they would like you to do about suicide among youth. But if it comes back up, you'll see that the oh, perfect.
In the back one, right?
Yeah. Or 2 maybe. So if you'll see the common line, right? Oh, I'm sorry.
The ones that you saw were.
Absolutely. So the first question was, how do you see adults reacting when someone says they have a mental health problem? And is there anything you'd like to see change? And the one that I highlighted was, they react saying, how can you have a disability at your age? What are key things you want adults to know about suicide among youth and young adults? And the one I highlighted was, take youth seriously. What are key things you want adults to do about suicide among youth? Take it seriously. Is there anything else you want us to tell us that we haven't asked about? I don't feel like I'm ever going to get help when the evaluator doesn't think I'm in crisis. So to me, the common theme, all of these quotes I thought were so helpful to understand actual lived experiences from our local youth. And you can see the common theme is, we need you guys to take it seriously. Whether it's because they're young and we tend to brush it off as they're teens, they're being dramatic, they're being emotional, right? Or whether it's to say they'll be fine. Our youth are asking us, please take it seriously. When I am showing a sign, when I am saying something concerning, take it seriously. Don't brush it off as me being an emotional teenager. And I think that is really impactful to see directly from our youth what they are asking us to do for them. And so part of taking that seriously is some of the things we've talked about, doing that training, knowing what to look for, but it's also that advocacy, right? Like I've shown that what was available, it's big picture thinking, which can be frustrating because it's not a quick fix, but continually advocating for the needs that we have here locally is, I think, personally, in my opinion, one of the best things that we can do, because mental health is so responsive to early intervention. The sooner we can help these kids, the outcomes will change drastically. We, right now, here in Medford, Grants Pass, we're not getting them until adults, that's all we have. And they're already so much sicker by the time they come to us. So taking them seriously now as youth, advocating for what we can to get them those services now, means that they'll have so much more promise for the future. So, thank you so much for letting me talk with you guys, and we'll continue. And yeah, I think you said there's time for questions. I also wanted to make sure I mentioned really quickly, since I am passionate about all of this, I brought, obviously if anybody would like this information, I can always email it, but I also brought copies that you're welcome to look through of resources that I have that I've gathered over the years for Grants Pass in Medford. Some are specific to teens for mental health, adults dealing with addiction and mental health, all those different things. So if you'd like to browse through those, I printed out copies so that hopefully if you have anybody personally in your life that you want to kind of get connected, there's at least some ideas there. So yeah, oh yeah, I mean, these are kind of lists of resources too, so. Yeah.
So you might wanna pull the mic out.
Sure, okay.
And you might wanna walk around and ask questions so they can have them. So my question is, you had two things up there that we could do, and the first one was it sounded like a 2-day workshop, and the second one was a mental health first aid, and that was an online thing, or how was that done, and how long does that take to do?
Great question. Yeah, the mental health first aid is also in person. So these are two initiatives that Oregon has been focusing on. And so I think locally here, if I remember right, Columbia Cares provides the mental health first aid. I wrote it down so that I would remember because they do it through, you know, some other programs. Sorry. Too many papers.
Yeah.
I will find it, but I'm pretty sure it's Columbia Cares. So mental health first aid is also in person. They have a few different types of classes depending on what you're looking for. The main one, if I remember right, was a day program, 1-day workshop. Assist is 2 days, and you have to go through all 2 days if you want to be certified, have it. Obviously, if you're just a community member, you don't have to be certified. There are costs for each of those, however, they also are, the state of Oregon and the local organizations are frequently offering kind of scholarships or assistance if you need help paying it, because they really are trying to get the community to take these courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the subject makes me emotional, but I volunteer at Parkside with the first graders, and I don't know if you're familiar with Parkside Elementary, but we are in the we're one of the schools in the district that have very high poverty rates, and the behavioral issues this year have been amazing to me. They have to lock the doors for children that get loose in the hallways, and I'm out in the hallway, so I'm with a child when the other children are, having their issues. And so can I is there a class that I can take that would help me with the children when I'm volunteering there? Because when I see these kids, I say, when I look at them now, I say, they're gonna be on the street. The people that we can sort of walk around, later on, so if there's something we can do now.
Yeah, for sure. There is one that I actually didn't bring the name of it because it was specific to schools and I was trying to keep it broader. There is a class for behavioral health in the schools here in Oregon. And so I can definitely get that to you. But also, even if you weren't wanting to do maybe that so specifically, there has been really good evidence for parenting programs and parenting education, which I get that you're volunteering in a school, but it's the same concept, right? That the more the adults engage in those parenting education programs, the better the mental health outcomes for the children are. And that is actually some of the resources I brought today. If you're welcome to browse if you want. There's I think 2 facilities here in Grants Pass that offer free parenting education. And I know it might sound like, well, okay, I don't need to know how to parent, right? But the parenting education programs will be on specific topics, right? How to handle maybe outbursts of behavior, how to handle children who are dealing with anxiety. They have specific topics that can be really helpful. And like I said, the study showed that the more that adults engage in those, it affects the children so positively. So definitely, I can get you those.
Thank you so much for what you do. I had camps for youth, and we had camps that were almost predominantly high ACEs scores. But then it made me aware of the issue, and I met adults who had the highest ACEs scores who had help. And they are some of the most enlightened beings I know now, so it gives me hope. But what doesn't help with my hope is I shared one time an event that I had at one of my camps with kids that identified other than male and female. And I was very pleased with how I handled it. And I was sharing with other adults who tried to shame me for encouraging these kids that were just trying to get attention. So I'm aware that the idea about mental health and kids doing this is not enough of an issue for the mainstream society, because I think those are the people that put the kids in a state where they are so ashamed that they want to commit suicide. So again, I thank you, and I know almost everybody in this room works with kids or has worked with kids, and this is the kind of thing we want to be able to address and make a difference. So thank you.
I really quick, you mentioned the I'm gonna say, just so you know, I'm sorry. You're talking about the ACEs scores. Yes. I love that you pointed that out, that those would be adults were some of the most enlightened. So all of these statistics that I gave you, I hope it doesn't make you feel too hopeless, because it doesn't mean that there is no hope, right? It's all about how we handle it. And again, the sooner or younger we can access that, then the better the outcomes are going to be. Children can go through all of these adverse childhood experiences, but if we can get them treatment immediately, an effective treatment, they can have a very positive life. So, thanks.
Will you speak for just a moment on cutting? I've known family members that have gone through that with their young children.
and missed it for a long time, and so just try to be more vigilant with that and just talk a little bit about what cutting is.
Absolutely. There's definitely, I think sometimes some confusion around cutting. There is a correlation with, I think I had it on one of the slides with, it's called non-suicidal self-injury. So there is a correlation that if you harm yourself, you might have a higher chance of attempting suicide, but that doesn't mean it's always going to lead to suicide, right? There's plenty of children who are engaging in self-harming behaviors with no intent to, end their lives. For self-injury behavior, the biggest thing that I advocate for is open and honest conversations, right? I know that's probably said a lot, but that's, it's gonna depend on the relationship. I know I've said that most people here work with children, but I'm sure it's in varying settings, so I'm not sure kind of what level of relationship you have. But proactively, again, I think it goes back to that myth that we talked about, proactively bringing these topics up. People are afraid to do that. They're afraid to say like, well, if they're not cutting, I don't want to introduce the idea to them. And of course, at a certain age, maybe it's too young, right? But at a certain age, whether they brought it up to you or not, they're aware that it's happening. And so you proactively bringing these topics up, whether it's in conversations about, hey, have you ever noticed friends doing this? Or have you ever seen this happen? Opens that door to not have the shame around it, right? You're normalizing a conversation about the fact that people do this and that there's things that can help. And then if they're dealing with it, they know, yeah, we had a conversation about that and it wasn't like a huge shameful thing, right? So proactively bringing those topics up, I think can be really helpful and continually bringing them up. Again, within reason, I'm not saying we need to discuss these things all the time with our children, but checking in consistently. You know, hey, have you ever noticed that? Have you ever wanted to do that? It's not, again, going back to the myth, it's not going to encourage them to do it more. It's normalizing the conversation because all of those behaviors, again, go back to living in shame and the quiet and the shadows. And so the more we can bring it out into the public and normalize it, helps those behaviors lessen, not encouraging them more. Was there another part of your question? Yeah.
I have a question about addiction. Our local Al-Anon group is starting an LT group in Grants Pass. There is one in Medford, but a lot of the kids don't have a way to get to Medford. And we talk about shame, we talk about normalizing things. We're looking to how do we create those environments where it's an unconditional love, acceptable environment that you can talk about things that you say it out loud and you won't be thought poorly of as a result of it. And I'm wondering if the training, is that because there will be adults that have become sponsors and to support the kids. Are these trainings that are offered, would that be appropriate? I know what addiction is sort of adjacent mental health and, you know, but I'm just curious, is that a resource that we could maybe look at?
Yeah, I initially had touched on substance use and mental health, and it was such a good topic that I was like, it was too much. There is a strong correlation between substance use and mental health, whether it is substance use, it is both ways. If you are engaging in substance use, you're more likely to then develop mental health illnesses. If you have a mental health illness, you're much more likely to then engage in substance use to try to deal with your mental health. So there is always going to be a very strong correlation. So I absolutely would say those would be very helpful for the program that you're describing because it's always going to be interconnected. And as for making that safe space like you're talking about, I think those trainings are a great start, right? Because again, that helps that beginning training of how to normalize those conversations, what to look for, what to say, what to ask. And then, sorry, there was one thing you said that I was going to mention that my brain is a little forgetful today. I'm trying to say the shame. I'm so sorry, if I remember to let you know, but I think that would be a great place to start and it would help with creating that safe space because I think the hard part, at least that I found with adults in kind of normalizing those conversations is that people are not sure what to say or how to say it, right? And so by taking those trainings, you're gonna feel so much more confident in knowing this is a good way to respond, or here's what I should do. And so it takes the emotion. I mean, obviously you care, but it takes it takes the emotion out of that conversation. We can say, it's okay. My main concern is keeping you safe, so we can discuss what we need to in order to do that, because you're gonna feel, yeah.
I'm kind of more on the furry kids side. I know Steve has the therapy dogs as the Cavaliers, and that I understand he was saying that you also do, but you have.
Thanks for asking. I started with Fred. He is a Shih Tzu mutt that we got from a shelter in Ohio several years ago. And I have been taking him about once a week on the behavioral health unit for visits. He's certified, like Steve are, where they do kind of short little, just engaging visits. And then through that whole process, I got connected with our pediatrics unit at Asante, where in honor of a pediatric patient that they had that passed, the family and the breeder of their service dog wanted to donate a therapy dog in his honor. And so she is a golden doodle, and she is not working yet at the hospital. She is still in training. She's 1 year old. And their hope is to have her working almost full time on the pediatric unit. So like she'll be trained to do full days, 3 to 4 days a week, is the goal. So. Journey, sorry. Journey. Yeah. So we looked into her. They needed somebody to work with her, and I had already gotten connected with Fred at the hospital, so it was meant to be.
I see that there's a lot of interest in this training. Is there a way to make it a group training that many of us would do together?
I think so. I would have to double check, but like I said, I don't have the organizations that do them locally, and so I would be shocked if you reached out and they couldn't provide that, you know what I mean? Because they are the local organizations that provide it. So if you have enough, they might have a minimum number of people, but if you have enough and met it, then I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that. Definitely, I'll look into that scenario for the future too, though, for sure.
Well, we can carry those enrollment. I'll sign up for the class. Very good, and your passion is obvious. It's wonderful. All right, we have Lutz as our sergeant at arms. Here we go.
Thank you, Don. I don't know why I always get the sergeant at arms coming off of something that's so serious. So I'm trying to segue into my new game, a little bit. Does anybody know what the term purple dursel means? It's a Scottish term that means lounging in bed long after it's time to get up. And I was thinking as in relation to mental health, that, you know, that's a good way to ease into your mental health day. So happy purple dirkling. So this new game is something that was suggested to me by Kurt. I'm sorry that he's not here, since he was the one who won the last game. Remember, being the only one. So I'm going to talk just briefly about paraprosdokians. They're figures of speech in which the latter part of a sentence or phrase is surprising or unexpected and frequently humorous. Winston Churchill loved these, and you can see in his writings a number of them. So let me give you some examples of them. Where there's a will, I want to be in it. The last thing I want to do is hurt you, but it's still on my list. If I agreed with you, we'd both be wrong. To steal ideas from one person is plagiarism. To steal from many is research. I didn't say it was your fault. I said I was blaming you. Women will never be equal to men until they can walk down the street with a bald head and a beer gut and still think that they are sexy. I used to be indecisive, but now I'm not sure. Going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than standing in a garage makes you a car. And you're never too old to learn something stupid. So, between now and let's say the middle of July, I won't be on the podium up here again until the middle of July at the earliest. We're gonna be in Asia for 3 weeks during June. And so see what you can come up with between now and then. You know, I'll probably send out a reminder this time. I don't remember who told me last time. You need to remind people. So was it you, Joan?
No, not that.
So anyway, see what you can come up with. Look up the term Paraprustokian if you need to. Paraprostokia. And see if you can come up with one of your own. Again, the Petros gift card, something to strive for. Okay, happy bucks. I want to start out with $5 for my wife Lisa, who the reason that we're going to Asia is that we're going back to Taiwan for the graduation of Lisa's second graders from 2012. And they are very excited that teacher Lisa is coming back for the graduation. And they wanted to be sure that she was bringing KFC Papa back with her. That's what they referred to me as. They thought I looked like Colonel Sanders. Easy to keep up there. But anyway, it's going to be an exciting trip. We'll do Taiwan and then go on to Japan for 10 days. So we will be back for Paraprostokians in July. So I'm expecting some. How about any other happy bucks? Anybody heard from Brooklyn already out there?
10 happy bucks for Greg, for Kelly, for Tommy, for all of the people in our club have supported the Performing Arts Center and our platinum status, our club rocks.
Yeah.
I have gratitude. Oh, that came out loud. Gratitude happy bucks. We went to, I was absent last week because we were in New York. Our granddaughter graduated from Columbia University with a graduate degree in human rights. And during this last few months, she has been in an immersion program because she's been walking with and sitting with all those people that have been intense. And talk about intense. And she's a quite an impressive young lady, so we're very proud of her. So that's part of my happy bucks. The other is, I'm in the world of chaos, and I'm sure I'm gonna be able to fit one of those sayings that you come up with. Fritz and I are moving. We are installing our house in Mystic, and we're in the process of moving 5 miles up the river, going up the river. And so it's been a very chaotic time. I've been having fun. I brought Brenda some roses because I feel like I live in a botanical garden. There's so many different colored roses and more of them, and things blooming. Can't wait to have a party to have y'all out there. And I'm very happy about, I mentioned the program for the Alateen kids. We have an amazing community of Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, and soon to be Alateen supporters in this community. And I'm very proud of you and pleased that we have those resources. Steve Rowe, you have touched so many people in the stories that you've shared in the news, and you have no idea what courage you give to stand up and say things that are left unsaid, and you're a leader that is doing that. So thanks so much for that. And I'm very It's like, makes me, and I'm very grateful for this group. We're very fortunate to have a community boatnik. Reminds me of that. It's the funkiest darn thing, and nobody else does boatnik. It's like, what is boatnik? There are some really crazy names that people have coined it with. And it's a great little thing in our town, and I really appreciate that. And it's these small groups that are, that makes life better and helps us do some of the things that we need to do. Thank you very much for a very important presentation.
Maybe we get kind of carried away sometimes, but, we have a new group that we're sending her to called, On and On and On.
Thank you for your gratitude. Yeah, I always feel it, I'm feeling it. Well, I'm so grateful because my husband David is, acting. And he hadn't been acting since he was a teenager, and he's now with our own Road Valley Shakespeare Company, which is just 3 years old, outdoor. Anybody gone to the, yeah, so this is gonna be, in June on the weekend, Macbeth and Taming of the Shrew. And at the Wallport Vineyards on Slagle Creek out on Apple Creek Road. And I put these little cards on the tables. I've got some more if anybody wants to have your own. But they are just having so much fun. And what I like about these shows is I often can't understand, the Shakespeare stuff. But they're hamming it up. And so you can just tell what they're saying because of all the body language. And so it's a really good time. And what else? Yeah, it's in June, outdoors. Come join us.
Right.
I have 6 happy bucks gratitude for the last few days. I went to Santa Cruz and spent 2 days with my youngest granddaughter, who is not yet 2. And then on Sunday, we had a birthday party for my second oldest granddaughter, who turned 33. And on Monday, we went to her graduation where she earned her PhD. She was recognized for her PhD at UCSM. And it was so exciting. It was really neat. Okay, so. I have 15 happy bucks for an unbelievable year that we, who have been tutors in the schools, have had with our students, and I'm seeing yes, myself included. We had a great year with our kiddos, and it's pretty much ended now because teachers are doing assessments and schools are going to be let out very soon. But anyway, hoping that some of you will want to join our group. I'm looking at Pat here, and she's just a treasure to our literacy group. So thank you.
I had happy bucks for all the teachers and not just the teachers, but everybody here, just with their stories, they're teaching us something. So I'm grateful for that. And I know Parkside, one of the other first grade teachers said to me, she said, "Can I get another one of you?" So I know they're still hoping for the other teacher to get another tutor in the first grade. So anybody that wants one, there's an opening.
I have a couple of heavy bucks for Martusha. Her talk was excellent. Thank you very much.
That concludes, I think we have the anniversary this month of the Point Valley as well. 32 years, is that correct? And one of the reasons that it was founded was to be more open to female membership. And today we had Newts, James Online, me, and Greg. Out of 30-some people, there's only 5 votes, males, it's working.
Mom, be careful what you wish for.
7-6-15. Anybody else?
The gala was amazing. So thank you. That was the first time we had been to a performance at the Grants Pass High School. We volunteered there, but never gone to a performance. Amazing. And just great presentation by our speaker. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody else? Sit back, you know, then have the purple.
Sergeant, you gotta pick a car and, where's that Deb? Have we got a Deb? Doesn't mind, but. Yes, yes. No.
I don't have. I think maybe in the inside of there.
All right, I think Martusha should be the one to pick the car.
I think so too.
I think so, and
Let's draw one.
we don't have Lisa Looney here, so somebody else might win.
It is the 2 of spades.
2 of spades. All right, we're gambling for a good cause. Okay, so, now that we've done cards, I want to thank everybody for coming, and here is your inspiration for the day from the author, Anne Lamont. I think it's appropriate. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. All right, thank you, and let's see if I can get the gong going. You have to, huh? Maybe we aren't. Oh. I threw the forum were late, that I was never a good time manager. Have a good vote, Nick.
I heard till we in the town. I heard everything. I totally. I was very popular. I was with the bus.
Yeah, it's right about what. It'd be good to finish it today and I'll turn it in.